Greetings! This is I, Tantus Naravan Dracovin, Lord and Emperor of the Dracovin Empire, and welcome. It is time to continue my discussion on the Pathfinder role-playing game system and the races you can play within Pathfinder. I'm not talking about your standard races, your elves, dwarves, humans. I'm talking about all the unusual ones that you might want to try out playing. And here, we're going to talk about them, see if they fit with what you want to build a character about. So today for you, I have the Changeling. So the Changeling is an interesting race, as it is the product of a pairing between a hag, the hideous female monstrosities, and a willing/unwilling male of another species. Whether this is through magic or madness, the male of this other species decided, hey, I enjoy this hag. Let's have some children together. Well, the offspring children is then abandoned on the doorstep of some foster parents. Whether this is the actual father, who somehow survived whatever encounter there was, or another member of the same race. The child is basically fostered by another race, grows up. The child appears as the father's race. There's only a couple things which may make it stand out. Incredibly pale skin for the race. Always dark hair, tall, slender, incredibly attractive, and two-colored eyes. Mismatched colors. All changelings are female. A unique thing about them. The reason behind the all being female and the appearance is that they are hags in a way. When they reach puberty, they receive a kind of calling, a hypnotic call that enters into their mind and tries to have them leave the home they're going to and go forth. Those that follow this call eventually find their way to their mother and are transformed into full hags. Those that resist the call, though, are free to choose their own destiny. So the choices are to become a creature on and of yourself, resist the call of your mother, or embrace mother's call, and perhaps find a great power in being a hag. For this reason, they don't really have a society of their own. They're built into the societies they were raised in, effectively adopted into, fostered into. They tend to be whatever alignment you can be. Those that are more evil probably are more willing to accept the call. Those that are good are probably going to resist the call. And if you are an adventurer and taking classes on, the chances are that you are, of course, going to be one that resisted the call. It makes sense. Witches tend to be something that changelings get drawn into. A lot of their abilities pertain to it. But other kind of spellcasting classes, they've got it in their blood. I guess a good way of saying it. So even if they resist mom's call, still a little bit of mom stays deep within them. So, let's talk about the racial traits of a changeling. First off, they gain bonuses to their wisdom and their charisma. They also lose out on some constitution. They're a little weaker when it comes to their constitution. They have some natural armor. Their skin is exceptionally tough. Each of them has claws. 2 pairs of claws that do d4 damage. And they have dark vision. Now, every changeling has one more trait. This trait depends on the type of hag that your mother was. There are a great deal of different types of hags. As Changeling has been shown off in a couple different books, the initial book introduced about 3 different bloodlines, and more of them were introduced later on as more material has been shown, and more hags have shown up within Pathfinder. I'm not going to go over the full list of all the different hags and the abilities that they give them, but I'll give an example, which is a traditional one from the early times of the Changeling, is the Hulking Changeling, which is from an Annis hag. You gain +1 racial bonus on melee damage. You're a little better to hulk into some damage. There are 9 total hag types that they have so far that you can choose from, though, when kind of designing your changeling. This gives some options in the way that your character is built, and it might be something to consider looking into. What kind of changeling am I? Who was my mother? These are important questions for your character side. Now, for alternate racial trait, The first and foremost one is hag magic. Now, depending on the book that you actually are sourcing your information from, there is actually 2 different versions of hag magic which exist. Effectively, they do the same thing. They replace some traits and give you some magical abilities that are very hag-like, that you have a little bit of the magic of your mother deep within you. The other racial traits tend to replace certain bloodlines' abilities. A good example is there's one for the Hulking Changeling I talked about, which gives you a kind of mist child ability. You get when you get concealment, either partial or total, you get 5% more of that concealment. Can be very good. When your total concealment is 55% and 50, that can be a big difference. The other ones are bonuses when using charm spells, charm person, charm monster. Different bonuses when it comes to swimming, if you're more of a sea hag. And an important one to talk about is Witchborn, which you change out your wisdom bonus you naturally get as a changeling for an intelligence bonus. You're a better witch. That's an interesting one because very few alternate racial traits change your actual racial attributes. This is one that does. So you can choose very easily to have this one, instead of having wisdom, have intelligence as a changeling. Now I do want to mention, everything over here for the racial traits, racial abilities, racial archetypes, all this racial stuff that I'm talking about for changelings, there is a bunch of third-party material in it. I wouldn't say more than other races, but changelings have been apparently a favorite, so there is a bunch of stuff out there. All these races do have third-party material, just as the standard races do. I'd recommend checking it out for yourself. I'll try to note that a little bit more often in my videos. Anyway, so let's talk about favorite class bonuses. There aren't a lot of them, but of them, 2 of them stand out. One of them is the rogue one. You start building up towards more rogue talents. Granted, it's 1/6 of a rogue talent, so that means at the highest level you only get 3 more. But that's a lot of power. That's very good. Rogue talents are always helpful. And the other one is for, well, witches. Your favorite class bonus is more spells. They're a level below the highest level you can cast, but still, it gives you access to more spells that you can put into your familiar. This is not as versatile as something like a sorcerer when it gets extra spells. It's just basically extra spells in your familiar, i.e. your spellbook. But still, it's ones that you don't have to spend money for or worry about gaining levels for. It's still bonus material that you can have access to. I always like those very much. So this is a reason that rogues and witches are very good for a changeling. Now, for racial archetypes, there's one I want to mention, and it's for changeling witches. The Dreamweaver. The Dreamweaver is a changeling witch which, well, manipulates and creates and steals dreams. That's what the abilities they get. They can manipulate dreams, steal dreams, and possess someone through their dreams. They tend to have certain patrons, and they do get some alternate spell selections that you would get for your patron. Basically, the Dreamweaver calls upon their changeling hag heritage to manipulate and enter into the minds of others when they dream. A very interesting archetype. Now, for racial feats, there are 2. First off is Mother's Gift, which you can take up to 3 times, and each one of the times you choose a special bonus. These bonuses reflect the original 3 hag archetypes, but also kind of reflect the abilities you get. Enhancements to claws, natural armor, granting you a spell resistance. These are all very powerful abilities you can take, well, 3 feats to get. Eventually, though, you do qualify for another feat, Awaken Hag Heritage. This one gives you abilities that you're going to have to check the book that it originally came from to have the full listing of, because the abilities are dependent on your type of hag. And as I said, there are 9 types of hag. The thing about this is, yes, I gain some very powerful abilities, but I also then, regardless of whether I am or not, display evil. This manifests in an aura of evil if you be detecting evil, so that you would detect as evil, even if you are not. And also, it can be at the GM's discretion, weird little evil things like curdling milk or, plants withering. Things like that are dark displays that might occur randomly. Anyway, that's it for today. So, I introduced you to the Changeling. The Changeling is an interesting race because it's really a half hag. That's the easiest way to describe it. And a good majority of them transform into hags. It's the way that hags basically spread themselves. You think about that there are no male hags. How do you get more of them? Well, changelings. They're an intermediate step. But not all of them become hags. There are those that resist it and just go on to live their own lives. Maybe hunted by their mothers. Maybe haunted by the voice that's still calling to them, telling them to join mother. To live up to the darkness in you. The evil. And that could lead to very great heroes. Great people. It's hard to say what you would. You could even be just a selfish evil prick and just decide, hey, I don't want mom's power. I don't want to be under her sway. I want my own power. And go about your own way too. The thing is, it's again, open-ended to what kind of character you want to build. Anyway, so, if you have any great stories about changeling characters you've had in a game, let me know. I personally haven't had one, but I've had some friends which have had awesome changeling characters, both in games I've played with them, and had them as players of my own. But remember, check out all my links below, the Discord, Twitter, Twitch, Patreon, and of course, until the next time, I bid you farewell.